If you were at church recently, you may have heard about plans to crack down on vacation Bible schools. State lawmakers were talking about requiring churches to follow similar requirements to other day camps.
But churches spoke up and legislators listened and scrapped those plans. Your chief political reporter Susan Raff live in Hartford with what happened here. Susan.
Stephanie, here in Connecticut, camps are regulated by the state, and under this legislation, if it were to pass, Bible camps would also be included. Now, church leaders say they offer these camps practically for free, and they were concerned about additional costs and requirements. This weekend is registration for Vacation Bible School at St. John Jugen's Parish in Enfield.
We have a great outpouring. We actually turn children away because I think we have a great program.
For the past 6 years, 80 children spend a week during the summer. However, what's been going on at the state capitol had church leaders concerned. Legislation up for a vote would have required churches to have permits, background checks, and provide health records for their staff.
If the cost goes up, well, that's going to affect our parents if we have to pay extra fees to have a Vacation Bible School.
Lawmakers on the Children's Committee say the intent of the legislation was to ensure safety of all children. Churches have been exempt from state laws.
There were no regulations. There wasn't really any oversight of who was teaching the children, what was really happening. It was just overseen by the organization that was running it.
But churches spoke out against the legislation, and the section that would have applied to vacation Bible camps has been taken out. The Office of Early Childhood, which regulates camps, says churches were not intended to be included. There was a lot of opposition. Concerns were raised, and we are listening and re-examining the situation.
Their regulations are very cumbersome and don't make any sense at times. So I think there are a lot of people that are always worried about coming under the auspices of the state.
Religious education leaders like Patricia say what's most important are children and their families.
Because we're trying to do it on a shoestring so that the parents can afford it.
So as of now, that section in the legislation that would have applied to vacation, or I should say vacation Bible camps, that has been taken out. The Senate is expected to vote on the rest of the legislation, and that could happen sometime next week. Your chief political reporter, Susan Raff, Channel 3 Eyewitness News, live at the state capitol.
Susan, thank you.